If you eat a magical frog prince, are you a cannibal?
Ask about Illuminati, since the Charlie Peters. Is it Disney mind control? Is this MK Ultra Deluxe? Occult Disney, we go from real to real. Occult Disney, Bohemian Grove and no more real. Occult Disney, ask about Illuminati. Occult Disney, we teach occult to everybody. Occult Disney, the wish upon a star. Occult Disney, you know not to travel far. Oh, Occult Disney, the new brand Pinocchio. Yeah, yeah, Occult Disney, it's above so below. Occult Disney, please enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome to the Occult Disney podcast. It's where we dissect all of the magical frogs for their secrets, even if they used to be human. This is Matt here. Join me over there. It's the Paranoid American. What is it?
If you eat a magical frog prince, are you a cannibal?
No, you are a royal. No, you're an aristocrat.
well played,
Yeah,
sir.
I think that joke requires going much longer and more obscene. So
Just fill in the blanks in your mind if you know what the aristocrat joke is. But it's an honest question, because is the taboo of cannibalism about consuming human meat, or is it about consuming something that has a human soul? Because if it's the latter, then eating a magical frog prince would be cannibalism.
So if a British imperialist of the 19th century eats an Indian, then it's not cannibalism?
Because they don't have souls, is this the implication?
Yeah, the British definitely considered themselves a few cuts above. So, well, so did other people. I shouldn't just stick it on the British, but that's just the easiest go-to.
Well, I mean, speaking of the British, if you yourself don't have a soul, does that count as cannibalism?
Oh, we learned from that South Park episode the Japanese people have no souls. So
You said it, not me.
I said it, not you. But yes, it is the princess and the frog. Today we will be considering Cajun frogs, or Caribbean frogs, I guess. The prince is, where do they say he's from? A made up place, but I assumed it was Caribbean.
Well, I have an even more important question. Have you eaten frog? Wow, you actually have to think about this?
Well, I'm like, have I ever had a frog leg, or did I just watch the Muppet movie a lot, you know? I think I just watched the Muppet movie a lot. I guess. I feel like someone might have once been like, here's a piece of meat. This is frog. Would you like to try it? I don't think I've properly eaten frog. Seal, yes. Moose, yes. Other things we've discussed on this podcast before, yes.
Okay, well, I guess I can one-up you, because these are fairly normal, like not just some weird tourist trap thing. They're in South Florida, at least. There were more than a handful of restaurants that would just casually serve frog legs as appetizers. It's definitely not a full meal. If anything, it's kind of like getting chicken wings, but getting about 1/10 of the meat on them.
Well, that's what the locusts were around here, right? Same thing. And they'd probably be grossed out by the frog legs. I have had people in Japan, when I mentioned frog legs, be like, ew, what? But, then they'll go home and eat natto for breakfast, the fermented soybeans that smell like feet.
Right, and wash it down with some fried chicken feet or whatever it is that they do with those things.
So, one person's weird food is another person's insane food.
Definitely don't knock this one. It's worth trying. Don't overpay for it, because if someone's charging you more than chicken wings, then you're getting taken because it's a novelty. But if you can find some just sort of Creole or Southern nook that is selling them casually, it's worth grabbing them just once. Eat frogs.
Now, which I should mention, there's a way of on this food talk, but Tiana's Bio Adventure, the relatively new ride based on this movie, is extremely food based. So
Oh, they should absolutely serve frog legs, but I guess you couldn't, right?
They there we go. If you've been a frog, you become a human again, and then you eat frog legs. Is that some kind of cannibalism?
Or if you're Disney and you create a movie that has intellectual property that are certain animals, right? Disney obviously wouldn't serve bear, but does Disney serve a lot of food that also feed like rabbit? Could they serve rabbit or venison? Or is Disney like, oh, they're not allowed to serve venison because they've got Bambi?
Huh. That's interesting. Sorry, I'm just thinking of what.
Well, there's really no chickens. No one cares about Chicken Little, so there's not really a lot of chickens or turkeys. Turkey leg.
Oh, they love the turkey legs. Yeah, that's
Right.
for sure.
They definitely don't serve horse. They definitely serve burgers, but I can't think of any really popular Disney cows. It almost seems that every conventional food that you can find in Disney parks, they end up not becoming. So I guess what I'm saying is if you're a pig or a cow, don't set your sights on becoming a Disney, star. I think that maybe
Home on the Range had the cows. Of course,
yeah, but
flopped as
even
well.
then, I just feel like they were dairy cows anyways.
Right. And they actually made a big point of that, didn't they? So you made sure that you knew that these cows were not going to get eaten.
I don't know, and just an interesting theme or a theory that I'm developing is that Disney won't serve food that become main characters in their movies, and the converse is also true. They will not make main characters out of animals that they already know they've invested heavily in as food.
Okay, I have one picture for your consideration. Can you see what this is?
You're gonna have to describe it for me too.
It's Baymax curry. The rice is Baymax. So you do eat Baymax in this curry.
Okay.
But of course, you're not eating Baymax. You're making something made to look like Baymax.
Right.
I guess that's a little bit different.
Anyway, we're just a theory that we're developing here as we go.
No, it makes sense. I was sitting here just scanning through all the at least Tokyo Disneyland menus. And I was like, I guess you could get some shrimp at the Polynesian Terrace.
But even that doesn't count, right? I mean, unless I'm sure they serve crab at some of the finer restaurants, and I'm sure there have been some amazing Sebastian jokes that I'm not even privy to.
Oh yeah, if you're in Magellan's at Disney Sea, they're probably that's. I mean, it's considered to be a fine restaurant. It's considered to be a fine restaurant. It's in a theme park, so it's kind of hard to call it that. But it does, I don't think it has a Michelin star or anything. But yeah. The Frog, the Princess. What's your history with this one? I think I didn't see it in the theater, but I did watch it relatively soon once it came on disc. Enjoyed it and didn't think about it too much for several years.
Yeah, same. This was being touted as Disney's return to, or as close as they were going to get to returning to traditional animation. So I remember being incredibly interested in this because I myself prefer Disney's original animation before they went crazy on everything being 3D. So it was serviceable. I watched it when it first came out, thought it was great. I remember one scene in particular was probably one of my favorite scenes, and rewatching it again, it reminded me it still is one of my favorite scenes, probably still in the top 3.
Yeah, I'm going to make, I guess I need to work towards my point, but with a little production stuff. The directors Musker and Clements had basically left Disney in 2005 after Treasure Planet was a massive flop, as we covered several months ago.
I don't even remember what happened in that movie.
Yeah. So as Disney's flipping out, and they're having the whole Pixar thing, it's like, hey, Musker and Clements, come back, do whatever you want. You want to do CG, you can do that. You want to do the 3D thing, you can do that. You want to do traditional animation, you can do that. I think, at least from our perspectives, wisely they chose to do the animation, right? So, and the look of this one. So for the past several months, I've been saying, well, the CGI movie, they were looking at this old form of animation and tried to copy that. And you and I are like, what? This one actually makes sense. They were basically decided the platonic ideal of a charming Disney style was Lady and the Tramp. So they specifically kind of targeted the Lady and the Tramp look for this movie. This one's a little more like the colors are different. Like this, well, we're going to talk about colors, but this one's green and purple with a little bit of red and some yellow, right? And I have a color theory. That I'll bring out later. But Anyway, the point I'm working on is due to those things. This movie, watching it last night, kind of feels like a greatest hits of Disney animation sort of thing. Like, well, if we're only going to do this one more time, which basically turned out to be correct, let's just like bring in like elements from many different movies that we like and kind of like trot them out one more time. So to me, it makes a few of the songs a little bit too samey. Like I've heard Five Villains do the song in the past. This one's good, but you know, there is a little.
They've got a formula going. There's really no reason to tweak the formula too much. If anything, a greatest hits formula is still just all the same. Like it would be weird to have it be greatest hits and not follow a very predictable formula. Because remember again that this movie wasn't necessarily just for people that had also been through the original Disney Renaissance. This was getting new people into Disney, like new kids. That's every Disney movie is potentially an entire new generation, or at least a new wave of kids that are going to become under the Disney spell. So this wasn't made for you, Matt. This was made for them.
I mean, it's been what, like a good 10 years since they'd done the formula, this version of the formula. I mean, what's the last successful version of this formula that we had covered? And that because Pixar didn't have the song, so they don't do the whole Broadway shtick. Like Hercules? Is there one after? I mean, Home on the Range kind of half-asses it, I guess. Emperor's New Groove is, like we said, it's trying to push into that comedy thing a little more. It feels a little different, you know? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know in terms of success, but I know thematically this one feels the most like Beauty and the Beast. If you were to strip away all of the settings and everything else, the story itself feels very much Beauty and the Beast. And there's a little Emperor's New Groove in there, but Emperor's New Groove was already a little bit of a mess, so it's hard to tell exactly. Like it's hard for that one to be a basis for anything because it itself couldn't even be a basis for its own movie.
Right. Of course, this also is a little weird in that it's Disney's first Black princess, but we turn her into a frog a green frog for half of the movie, which it's the only princess they really do that with. That's kind of weird. And I have I notice kids are always coming in with their water bottles. And when it's a princess water bottle, Tiana's only there now about half the time. Like if anyone gets cut, it's going to be Tiana.
That's more of the screen time than she gets. And actually, are we already saying that Gazelle was cut from what was that, Enchanted? Because she's the one that usually doesn't show up since it was based on a real person, right?
Oh, right. You'd have to pay Amy Adams for that. So
is she automatically excluded just because Disney doesn't want to pay anyone like that?
No. There are a few notable voice actors in this movie. And I mean, the one doing Tiana's voice is good, but I don't think it's specifically made to look like her. And she's not an A-list star. So she was in Dreamgirls, Anika Nani Rose. And it seems, I mean, this is basically what her big thing was. What else? A few Broadway productions. Dreamgirls is the other big film performance. She was called a Disney legend in 2011, so she does have that going for her. But yeah, it looks like she kind of like did a couple movies and then went back to Broadway.
Well, I guess anyone that is the voice of a Disney princess in a theatrical release is a Disney legend, kind of by definition, even if you don't remember.
Right. We're going to get to Tangled before too long. And is that Mandy Moore who does the voice in Tangled? Like that has, like, up to this point, the Disney princess voices don't really have so much star power, you know? Mandy Moore does Rapunzel.
There was something else weird too, because you said that the character Tiana doesn't necessarily look like the voice actress, and there was something weird in the movie where as soon as Tiana gets turned into a frog, spoiler alert, her voice gets way more animated. All of a sudden she has a lot more emotion in the voice. While she was in human form, it almost felt like a different month, a different year, if it was even the same person.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at pictures of both of them. But the picture of hers from 2024, so I don't know if that counts. I mean, she's looking good 2024. I'm just like, maybe I need to see a younger her if I'm going to be like, how much does she look like Tiana, you know? Let's see. Just rolling. I guess I'll roll through a few more of the voices. Let's see. This one. Keith David, he's doing the Shadow Man, our voodoo doctor. So always good to see Keith David in a film. He's one of those guys that's like, even if the film's bad, you're happy he's there. So
what other movies is Keith David in?
Is he in The Thing? The Thing, Platoon, Roadhouse, Armageddon. I'm looking through a long list here. He was in a season of Community, but I guess that everyone was in a season of Community. So the big one, The Thing is the one where it's just like he's just like super badass,
The only other voice that really stood out immediately was John Goodman, I think. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that one.
Oh, you are 100% correct about that. I will have another couple voices for you that are definitely worth mentioning. But yeah, it's that weird strain of like extra Southern John Goodman you sometimes get, especially around this period of time. Because like Roseanne stuff, and he's kind of talking like this, and it's always and then I remember when I think it was the Coen brothers, The Lady Killers, where it really starts putting the stank on, and he's doing that in this movie. So
well, that one, and also in Oh Brother Where Art Thou, I believe that he was sort of a villain for a small.
You're right,
and that's when he had that real thick Southern drawl.
That scene is. The picnic where he rips him off. That's in Oh Brother. Okay, I thought that was on Lady Killer, so I was thinking of Oh Brother.
He hit that and he realized how fun it was to act like a plantation owner, and he kind of
Southern madman.
And even now, right? He's in the mighty. Oh, what is it? The Glorious Gemstones, or I don't know if you've seen this one, but he plays a Southern preacher that owns this huge televangelist conglomerate. It's sort of Succession meets televangelism, and he plays the head honcho in that, and he's using this exact same accent.
I guess I get it, because once you start doing a dumb voice, sometimes you get stuck in it. Back when I worked at the whale camp, we were on the boat. Sometimes I just get stuck in a pirate voice for like 2 hours,
like Jim Carrey trying to be Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, that sort of thing. I need to rewatch that movie. I think it would play better now. I don't know. Because at the time that it
doesn't hold up to watching the actual Andy Kaufman footage, though. That it is a whole different level, I think.
Yeah, I guess that's why. I guess I was just like now people are like a little more accepting that Jim Carrey might do a more dramatic role, and it still felt weird when Man on the Moon came out. He's supposed to be funny, but he's dramatic, and now I will give him that. Of course, kids today just think he's Dr. Robotnik, so
I guess that is his new trend. I really want a Truman Show 2 where he goes back and he's pissed, and it's basically just like a revenge movie.
And he's jacked with guns. Would there still be people there just living their lives?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
I think they leave when Truman leaves.
Really? I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's
they
almost
did spend a lot of money on that dome.
Right.
It's like, I don't know. I guess it's a great
they got
place
a whole
for conventions
ocean and everything. Why not? I mean, clearly that was an MK Ultra project, so they would have just swapped him out for something else. Maybe it's not being advertised, or if it is, it's airing in Germany only.
No, I like where it becomes a convention center. That's more fun. Let's see. Yeah, Goodman. Here's one because she doesn't show up in many movies. Oprah Winfrey is doing the voice of Tiana's mother, Eudora, which I guess she was like involved with the film in some way, and then ended up doing a voice as well. I guess maybe I want to say she's a producer, but that doesn't sound right when I say it.
She usually leaves that for her best friend Jeffrey Epstein.
That would have been trippy to see that as the produced by. I mean, even now when you're watching a movie and it pops, doing films and films where you're watching kind of random films, when you're watching something, it's like the Weinstein Company, or like, oh,
I can't remember if this came up on one of our shows, but I read this article recently where Weinstein, he actually was telling Studio Ghibli that they needed to edit down Princess Mononoke from 130 minutes or whatever to 90. And he was basically saying, I will not distribute this movie unless you guys edit this down to 90 minutes. And that was one of the things that Studio Ghibli decided, like, they were just going to push back on. They were the ones that actually had final say. And after he got in trouble, now all of a sudden it became this sort of like, a notch in their belt. Like, we stood up to him before anyone else would, even though it was about the runtime of Princess Mononoke.
yeah. I like that story. And then by Spirited Away, they're kind of by Spirited Away, I guess they're more on the straight up Disney and the distribution, which probably that's why.
And Weinstein probably was running the show at that point.
Right. I was reading a book about 90s Hollywood, which had an awful lot of Weinstein stuff, but I didn't make it to the end. I usually do finish books, but sometimes if I know I'm just not going to happen, it was just so mired in 90s Weinstein stuff. I was like, yes, I know about this guy enough. It was supposed to talk about all of independent cinema, which I guess if you're talking 90s independent cinema, you will be talking mostly, 50% Weinstein, which the book proceeded to do, and it wasn't not a fun read.
Funny how that works. Patron of the arts, just like this point came up a little bit earlier, that through Project Mockingbird, Operation Mockingbird, the CIA became one of the biggest advocates and funders of jazz music for a small moment in time.
What moment in time was that? Because I can carbon date a lot of jazz. I'm curious. Is that when Sun Ra was just going nuts?
This would have been okay. Let's not start bringing Sun Ra into this and nuclear war. But no, there was a certain number of tours that they were bringing. I believe Dizzy Gillespie, Nina Simone was one of the big ones. They were trying to combat this wave of leftism and communism, where they were basically saying, let's make everyone equal. And they were propping up a lot of these like black musicians in particular overseas, specifically in Europe. I think it was like Radio Free Europe. And they were trying to show, like, look at how great it is in America. Anyone can be anything. Look, here's these popular stars. It was just 100% a psychological warfare campaign, but they were using it through music. But they were spending lots of money to fly these artists all over the world. Many often in places where they wouldn't have otherwise gotten an audience, or if they weren't making the same amount of money elsewhere.
No, I got the proof, or not the proof, but I have collaborating evidence sitting in my CD box set right next to. I'm not going to pull it out because it's at the bottom of the pile, but it's a Jazz from America on Disc Vogue with 30 discs of jazz musicians that were sent over to Europe and did an album while they were there.
Yep, and a large portion of that could have been funded by Operation Mockingbird directly.
No, that's what I'm saying. Most of this probably is that. That said, most of the sets are really good. Maybe they were looking at a good movie instead of broad.
That's exactly the point I'm saying. Just like Weinstein, right? Horrible human being. Everyone pushes, but yet he was this like a literal patron of the arts. Even if people hated working with him, even if he was trying to chop down Princess Mononoke to 90 minutes, which should be enough to give someone the death penalty anyways. But I feel that regardless of all that, he was still de facto a patron of the arts. Like, he made independent and other sort of, media accessible to the world. Maybe just because he was the guy that was, at that door, and anyone could have been that thing, but he was the one.
Well, he figured out how to push through the door. I mean, as a belligerent asshole, but
and then put you onto the bed and then close the door, and
yeah, and it goes on. But yeah, I mean, wouldn't have Pulp Fiction without him, I guess, in a way. Well, you might have it, but people wouldn't know what it was. It would have played in a few art houses, and actually, that came up pre all that 80s independent cinema. I was talking to a guy a few days ago, and he was just looking at A Boy and His Dog, and I remember the push in like video stores. That's Don Johnson as a child, by the way. But in the 80s, video stores were pushing it, but it was like just still small beans. So it's like, yeah, it is the 90s where a film like that can actually become somewhat mainstream, as opposed to this movie, which it was always going to be mainstream. And I was very happy to see a nice and normal 1 hour and 37 minutes, a lot of which is credits when I turned it on. In fact, when the movie was reaching its climax, I was like, what, we're already here?
Yeah, I mean, it could have been shorter. 1 hour and 37. I almost feel like you are the frog in that boiling pot of water that is the length of Disney movies.
Is that how long it takes to boil a frog?
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually 1 hour and 37 minutes.
But yeah, I didn't hate getting through this. So the night before for my other podcast, I had watched the 2007 movies Bratz with a Z, and I had to watch it late at night, and I was like, praying for God to get to the end of the movie.
Or for God to just end the world, whichever one came first.
Oh God, I still have to write a plot summary for that one. Okay. It's amazingly incoherent though.
This movie actually has a surprisingly large cast of figures. It doesn't seem like that as you're watching it, because I think they do a great way of compartmentalizing the different little subplots and the characters that go with each other. But this one's got Prince Naveen. It's got his assistant Lawrence, Dr. Facilier, Tiana, Charlotte, Big Daddy, Mama Odie, Ray, Lewis, Eudora, James, and at least 5 or 6 other people that were a little bit less main and a little more supporting cast. But this one has a huge ensemble of characters, just regardless of names or any known voices. Just to have a cast this big is pretty significant compared to some of the, look at Up, right? How many characters were in Up?
5. Sorry, just spit guessed that one.
Yeah, well, whatever. It was probably closer to like 7 or something. But yeah, this one is got a large cast, and I think that's also indicative of these slightly longer run times.
A couple more in here, by the way. Ray, the doomed Firefly, who they do kill, is Jim Cummings, who's he's all over the place. He's been Winnie the Pooh since 1988, right? So it's also the Tasmanian Devil for the competition.
Did you grow up with fireflies?
Yes.
I have to ask, have you ever rubbed fireflies on your face like Indian war paint?
No. You can do that?
Well, definitely me neither. I definitely would not have done that as a young child. That would just be horrific. But yeah, you can absolutely just smear them and they turn into fluorescent paint for a little while.
Oh, no, I never worked that out. Okay, that's probably nice of me to not figure that out.
I swear I didn't know any psychos.
Where is it? Oh, the last voice. I'm gonna mention 2 more voices. Terrence Howard is Tiana's dad. I guess people don't like him anymore. He retired from acting because people don't like him. Is that what happened? I don't know. Pseudoscientific theories. That looks fun. Ooh. In a 20,
I don't think he retired.
That's what Wiki says, but whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just saying that. Okay, I have to read a pseudoscientific theory for a moment, though, right? That sounds like fun. He tried to debunk Pythagorean theorem on Joe Rogan. Okay, that's fun. Claimed that he can kill gravity. Says he does not believe in the number 0 and remembers the events of the day he was born.
Correct. And I think he had another thing, too, where he was trying to prove, I'm going to get this wrong because
I'm going to get it right because I'm going to read it out loud if you want.
Yeah,
please. In a 2015 interview with Rolling Stone, Howard explained that he had formulated his own language of logic, which he called teriology, in which he was keeping secret until he had patented it. You know what I'm saying? Patented it. Make a patent on it. This logic language, he claimed, would be used to prove the statement 1 × 1 = 2. How can it equal 1, he said? If 1 × 1 = 1, that means that 2 is of no value because 1 times itself has no effect. 1 × 1 = 2 because the square root of 4 is 2. So what's the square root of 2? Should be 1, but we're told it's 2, and that cannot be.
It's funny enough that you mentioned Pythagoras in this because there's 2 rumors about Pythagoras killing a guy. One of them is that someone asked him the square root of 2, and he couldn't deal with irrational numbers. Ironically, irrational numbers made him irrational, and he killed you if you even brought up the concept of rational numbers. The other one is that he drowned someone for talking about the dodecahedron.
There is something I can't understand, how Pythagoras could just kill a man. I don't know.
The Cypress Hill.
Yeah, I think I've done that joke several times in the past month, but not on this podcast, I believe. So it's
new to us. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's kind of like teaching, when I was younger, I was like, different class, I have to do different jokes, and I finally realized I can get away with doing the same joke in different classes at least once, right?
Or 2 or 3 times, honestly.
Yeah, especially depending on how young the kids are. That is correct. Let's see. Oh, the other one. This is not someone that's so much famous, but Mama Odie. The voice is. I saw it. Where'd it go? I lost it. Sorry, my brain just exploded. There you go. Jennifer Lewis is Mama Odie.
Who was Oprah Winfrey again?
Was that?
Who was Oprah Winfrey?
Oh, sorry. She was Eudora Tiana's mother. So
okay.
Tiana's parents are Oprah Winfrey and Terrence Howard.
Right. And who's the other lady? Mama who? I didn't even.
Mama Odie.
Mama Odie was the good witch in this movie, technically.
Right. Well, a 197-year-old voodoo bokor, if we want to be specific. I don't know what a bokor is. Is a voodoo priest or priestess for hire in Haiti who is said to serve the Bible with both hands.
I know this from another completely different tangent of research, but yeah, bokor is essentially like a mercenary is to a soldier. If you had to really make an analogy.
So Mama Odie will play anybody's game then, right?
If you got the money, then yeah, she'll do whatever you need her to do for the money.
Right. Okay. And she's voiced by Jennifer Lewis. And I just thought it's funny because she's supposed to sound super old. And then Oprah Winfrey, the first scene, she's Tiana's mother, but she sounds old, right? You know what I'm saying? Oprah Winfrey sounds older. I don't know. It's just weird that Jennifer Lewis actually is younger, but she sounds older. And Oprah Winfrey's older, but she sounds, I don't know. I just mixed myself up.
Well, I mean, if you're 197 years old and you're still kicking, you're probably going to sound a little bit younger anyways.
Yeah. Well, she's a voice actress, so obviously she's doing the thing. And the first scene with Oprah Winfrey, I just kind of like, I thought she sounded too old to be young Tiana's mom, but then in the rest of the scenes, she's older anyway, so it works. That didn't bother me. It's just an observation I made, and now that I'm saying it, doesn't seem that interesting. Sorry.
They honestly should have killed both of her parents. I'll just say it. They needed to go full Disney proxy on that one, because she loses her dad, but it doesn't happen necessarily in a way that would normally fit the Disney proxy. It just shows her leaving a room as a little girl. Her dad's alive, and then she comes back into the room again like 10 years later, and now we know that dad's dead and he died in the war, and he's got some sort of distinguished medal from the army.
I think narratively, like, Tiana's mom still needs to be working for that family, and then they don't. And then, so, because if mom was dead, you know, if they're altruistic, maybe they adopt Tiana and she just lives in that big house to start with. But we need a situation where Tiana still lives in a shotgun shack, right? So that kind of requires mom to be alive.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, that's one of the weirdest things in this movie is that the whole thing is about lifting yourself up by your own bootstraps, work hard, earn what you get, all this. And it's kind of looking down her nose at this rich girl that she knows, Charlotte, that she's growing up with, and Big Daddy, who's John Goodman, who's Charlotte's dad, that they are these rich people in town, and they're the ones that are basically keeping Tiana's mom fed, because they're hiring her to be a seamstress to make all of these princess dresses and gowns and stuff for this rich chick, right? And then even that same exact rich chick, as they grow up, she's kind of a friend, I guess, in parentheses or question mark, with Tiana as they get older. And she's the one that gives Tiana enough money to open her own restaurant, which has been her dream this entire time. The main point being that, yeah, this family seems altruistic enough, yet Tiana and her mom, I guess, are so reserved about asking them for anything, even though most of the wealth and most of the opportunity that they get throughout the entire movie comes directly from them. They're convincing themselves that they're working hard for everything and that they're not, looking for handouts or using the help of anyone else, but they clearly are. They're clearly benefiting directly from knowing these people in particular.
Is this the Disney movie that gives us the most like recognizable socioeconomic class sort of stuff? Because usually it's like peasant to castle. I'm from this world, you're from that world. This is just recognizable. These people have money and have a nice house, and these people don't have money and live in a shotgun house, I
wouldn't say first. I mean, Robin Hood, I think, did a pretty good job of that.
That's medieval. That gets back to peasants and castles. I'm talking about, like, obviously this is in the past. It's a different era, but it's still more recognizable. Like the shotgun house, I keep saying, because, in Atlanta, you you tour the MLK Center, and they always take you back behind where there's these style houses. So, I've walked through that style house and stuff. People still live in some,
Yeah, I think fair point. The other close one might be Meet the Robinsons, because they're growing up in an orphanage, right? But then we revisit the orphanage and it's completely dilapidated, yet that one kid is still living in there. So I don't know. I feel like there's other, but yeah, this one.
Speaking of movies I can barely remember anything about, by the way.
Really? I don't know. That one will stick with me.
I didn't remember hating it. I just can't remember what happened in it.
Here's talking about this like socioeconomic. Is this the first movie that really focuses on it? I was trying to figure out where the Disney proxy went in this movie, because like we said, the mom never dies. The dad kind of like gradually transitions out. So usually the Disney proxy follows this formula that the missing authority figure presents a dilemma that needs to be solved. And then usually the first intellectual property sidekick you see on the screen is the thing that fixes whatever that is. In the proxy, it's that the kid's alone. So the first person that shows up, or the first animal that shows up, fixes them being alone and ends up kind of being their guardian. In this movie, it's not the parents that are gone, it's the money. So in this one, the Disney proxy is money. Tiana and her family has no money, the same way that you don't have an authority figure. And it's the frog that shows up, and the frog is the solution to that problem, I guess, in theory, in the magical rules. Although in reality, the money is solved by Charlotte, her proximity to someone that's already rich.
Hey, maybe then, if we're doing, maybe the money is not the proxy, then it's the loss of humanity, which means that Prince Naveen's in the same situation, right? So even though she meets the frog, that's not meeting the animal. The proxy is losing humanity and becoming a frog. And then after that, you meet, what's his name? The alligator and Ray the Firefly, right? So they do serve that purpose of helping them to start, get to the point where they can restore their humanity.
Well, Louis, the alligator, he knows that he's not a human, yet he still also wants to become human. He's basically the Little Mermaid in this movie.
Yeah, and that's certainly one of the bigger greatest hits things, because there's, Mama Odie's got a little bit of a slightly nicer Ursus vibe or whatever, right? We've seen Voodoo Daddy. That's not his name, but that's what I'm saying. Let's find out what that is. But we've seen him. I mean, he's very similar to
Shadow Man.
Boogie. Yeah, Shadow Man. He's similar to Oogie Boogie in Night Before Christmas. And there's another big one that he's very similar to, and it's just like late 90s. It's slipping my brain, but he's very similar to past Disney villains, right?
Yeah, he has some of the mannerisms and aesthetics too of Captain Hook, even the same color schemes. Disney loves using the blacks and the purples to define their villains, which dates all the way back to Chernobog, the Black God, I'm pretty sure. So
do you think they were trying to mix in a little bit of Prince? I felt like they were trying to mix in just a little bit of Prince, like Purple Rain era Prince.
I mean, I feel like Prince is in a little bit of everything, just like God.
Okay, I can accept that theory as well.
You turn over a stone and you will find him there, Prince.
Right. Now, I guess I will get more into the colors, because the color design in this movie seemed just like even more in your face than usual,
Well,
so,
my absolute favorite song / scene in this movie, and probably in my top 3, man, it's right next to the Dumbo drunken acid trip scene, is that song Friends on the Other Side. And this is where the Shadow Man, it turns into almost what looks like blacklight. And I love the effect and the color theory behind making it look like blacklight, in addition to like half of it going on is not being exposed by the UV, but then some portions are, the way they do all the masking. It almost feels like you're on a Disney ride.
I was about to say, that's the scene where the prince is transformed, is it?
Correct. Yeah, this is where they actually take some blood from his thumb and it starts spinning around, and then he's talking about his friends on the other side, indicating, who knows, demons or angel, probably demons. I think we're talking
that
about
one
demons.
Stuck out. That's where I'm like, oh, we've been here and done this before, but the sequence is really cool, and it really I was sitting there just thinking like they're trying to do Madame Leota's room in the Haunted Mansion, or a variant of that. So that's maybe why you think Disney rides so much, because it feels like you're on the Haunted Mansion with black lights,
Well, and it ends in kind of fireworks. It ends as if it were this show for an audience, and that you're the one that whole thing was for. It doesn't even seem like it has anything to do with the movie. This one's for the audience.
Someone was just like, "Oh my God, we screwed up the Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy so bad. Maybe we can do a little bit here." That's kind of how I read it, which I support that. Sure.
Also, we can add this one to the list of Disney movies that show blood, which is a short list.
Just a drop.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes is just a drop.
Okay, so I wrote down my idea of my like on the spot color theory somewhere in here. So red, we can work in red, but I sort of had this like yellow is good, all the fireflies and stuff, and we don't start seeing a lot of yellows until like later. And we start off with a lot of purple is kind of evil, and green's in between, like, suggesting maybe that our frog characters are get to choose their route, right? A little bit. They're not quite good or evil yet, because Naveen's a narcissist, right?
It's interesting you bring this up, because I was doing some other Disney color theory notes for something completely unrelated to this, but it turns out that usually greens and blues and purples are typical colors of Disney villains, and it's not dark greens though. It's usually light greens that represent energy or magic, but it's usually bad magic. There's rarely a green fluorescent energy that comes from something in a Disney movie that is a good thing. It usually indicates something bad happening. It's usually like a poisonous mist, or it's causing harm to somebody. Yeah, but they're kind of a darker shade of green in this one, so they don't have the same look. The frogs don't look like they're evil, because they don't have that same. But in this Friends on the Other Side song, he does turn into this fluorescent green color that's playing along with this black light. But it's the first thing my mind went to was that same exact thing about how light green energy and light green poison, and now this light green voodoo man.
And then when we get some hillbilly nonsense for a few minutes, right? They come in brown, like the humans are coming in like on a completely different color from the rest of the events in the movie. So they're, I mean, obviously there's a bit of color, but they're wearing overalls. They're coming in a wooden boat or whatever it is, and here comes brown just to mess things up for a few minutes.
Well, and the hillbillies represent that the humans are really the biggest villains in this entire movie, because they're the ones that seem to present immediate death as a threat more so than anyone else. Everything else you can get out of with magic, but these dudes want to kill and eat these frogs, right? Like they're basically me in one of these restaurants.
The humans are the real monsters.
I mean, clearly this movie checks almost every single one of those boxes, from Fern Gully all the way up to Girl Boss that we've kind of gotten into. This one, it kind of puts as much of that on the outskirts as it possibly can. Like it wears all of that on its sleeve, I should say.
You'd think they'd be a little flipped out though when they saw a curvy frog walking upright,
Well, no, a few of them did. As soon as her and the prince become frogs. Again, spoiler alert. I guess you already figured that out.
I think that's baked.
But once that happens, they can talk and humans can hear them, because there's a few people doing double takes when they hear them go by. And not only that, but there's this other weird rule that she can't talk to animals, right? Tiana's a princess that can't talk to animals until she becomes an animal, and then she can talk to other animals. She can talk to the dog, even though when she's also a frog, she can talk to humans. So I don't know. In this particular context, the movie does not take it down this angle, but I would have if I was involved in directing or writing it. But she could have just been a translator. Now we can talk to dog. A human being could talk to a dog without themselves or the dog being magical, by using, I guess she would be like a babble fish in a way, or a babble frog.
Yeah, that's a hell of a career to have, isn't it? It's like a ghost whisperer, dog whisperer, or whatever.
I mean, it seems easier than making beignets for the rest of your life, but what do I know?
That's what she wants to do. That's her dream. Tiana's place.
I have to say, as I'm watching her visions of Tiana's Place, which is this kind of 1920s kickback of basically a mafia speakeasy, right? All I can think of is the scale that she's thinking of at, like these high ceilings and everyone's wearing diamonds and gold and jewelry. That has to be run by the mob, right? There's no such thing as a club that looks that good and has that much opulence that isn't also trafficking in humans, drugs, or violence.
Yeah, that in New Orleans.
In New Orleans, yeah. In New Orleans. Like you're basically working for the Gambino family, I assume.
Yeah, you got to make compromises to get your dream, don't you?
Well, she was willing to kiss a frog, which was her violating all of her principles pretty early on, just for money, right? And I
actually green. She might be bad at that point, right?
Right, and I also think that this is a lot like The Little Mermaid, because in The Little Mermaid, Ariel gets tricked by Ursula into giving up her soul, and in this one she kind of gets tricked, although they both volunteer, right? They both sign on the dotted line. In this case, she realizes that she's about to do something that she doesn't agree with, but it's for this extra advantage, you know, this money. It's to fill this money shaped hole that is the Disney proxy in this movie.
Greatest hits. We need a bit of contracts, right?
How many other Disney movies are so focused on finance, though? I mean, I realize in a lot of these cases, the subtext is that you're marrying your daughter away for some sort of bounty, or that these princesses are trying to get into the royal families because it can completely change their lives for the better. But this one isn't just about, I want to marry a prince and then all of a sudden my life is all about royalty. This one is, I need enough money to open a business. Like I need a certain amount of money in order for this to happen.
Yeah. Green. It can be good or bad, right? Money, greenbacks. I don't know. I'm just trying to push my color theory. I think there's, I think it's got a lot of stank to it. As a quick aside, I do have to write that before I realized his name was Shadow Man, and apparently I can't remember it. I did write Voodoo Pimp Prince, which I think is a better name. That's what his name should have been.
We can call him. I mean, as long as what you're communicating is effective, and if you said that, I would know who you're talking about. So you can call him Voodoo Pimp Prince all you want.
And that is, as we mentioned, Prince as in the singer, not as in a royalty. Another production thing here is Alan Menken, who did, like The Little Mermaid and stuff, was on tap to possibly do this one, and they scuttled him for Randy Newman, which makes sense, but I don't know if I like it. You know what I'm saying? I think maybe I just don't like Randy Newman that much, because every song is just like. I
think I really like Randy Newman, man. There's something about it. It fits the Disney formula of weaponizing nostalgia. And Randy Newman's voice is weaponized nostalgia.
Of course, he's not singing a lot of these. We do have other people singing. Hey, I tried, man. Here we got the set of like 70s Randy Newman albums. So it's possible, but I haven't cracked that egg for whatever reason. Took me years to get into the Allman Brothers. For 20 years, like I understand they're good, but I don't like it. And then somewhere I turned to Key, and I like their earlier stuff now. So.
You don't have to feel like you need to.
I still feel like I need to I do like the crazy. I guess I found the psychedelia in there finally, because it's not obvious, but it's there.
See, that it's easier to like that because they're being used in car commercials and the big media wants you to understand the Allman Brothers. What you need to do is understand Lil Xan and Kodak Black. And if you can understand the musicality of those artists, then I think you're truly advancing.
Another band, I don't think I'm ever going to get into them, but Lynyrd Skynyrd, like the reason should I listen to them is their classic 70s albums were recorded like less than a mile from the house I grew up in. So I'm like, I feel like I should listen to the albums that were recorded right where I live. I just don't. It's too much for me. Allman Brothers is enough Southern. Lynyrd Skynyrd for me is like, I start feeling like I'm going to be rednecking or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking folk rock versus Dixie rock. They couldn't be any different, I don't think.
Yeah, the Atlanta rhythm section. In fact, their hit Doraville. That's actually my hometown. It's Doraville, which is a suburb of Atlanta. But I don't like the song. I guess Atlanta just made some bad Southern rock in the 70s. Sorry, that was still kind of popular.
I think a Leonard Skinner song would have worked well in this movie. Maybe not thematically, but sonically, it would have fit in perfectly.
Yeah. Well, not in the 1920s, but hey, I mean, do I know how to play Freebird and Sweet Home Alabama on a guitar? Unfortunately, yes. I don't
Bill
know.
Hicks would not be happy about that.
No, but it's the. I mean, people, you just they're not that hard for one thing. So, where are we going? Oh yes, Randy Newman. Menken didn't do it. You're more pro Newman. I mean, I'm not like sitting here being like, I hate this movie because of the music or anything. That's the thing. Randy Newman never drives me to that line. I'm just like, he doesn't really pop for me when he does. And especially in this setting where it's like the Broadway thing, like in the Toy Stories, his songs are kind of in the background. And it is, I mean, that's one of the reasons I can't listen to Randy Newman that much, is because it does feel like Toy Story. It's been so Toy Story in my mind. I start seeing Woody in my head when I hear his voice.
There was a specific episode back before Family Guy got canceled for the first time, because it got canceled like 3 or 4 times, but there was I want to say it was a New Year's special or something, and there was just a skit where it was the end of the world, and Randy Newman is just sitting there playing a whole bunch of different songs. Every single thing that would happen, he would just be narrating it as he's playing this piano under an apple tree. And now whenever I hear any Randy Newman song, Toy Story included, that's all I can think about is him just singing exactly what's happening on the screen.
Yeah, I guess my 70s piano man is Tom Waits. And instead of going into so much film work, he goes into just like insanity music. Tom Waits would have been fun music for this movie.
A little Bone Machine.
Yeah. I mean, around this time, he had recently done like Alice and stuff like that. That could have worked here. That would have had the 20s vibe too, right? I mean, a really creepy one, but whatever.
Well, they missed the boat. Disney missed the boat. What can we say here?
I think it's the boat for some people, but I would not be very happy with my Princess and the Frog soundtrack CD, Other ones I'd be happier with. Let's see. I guess we're kind of just moving through the movie narratively anyway, right? So we don't need to do the normal plot thing unless you feel like doing that.
No, I mean, I think it's pretty. I mean, we can do the quickest version. Girl's broke. Girl needs money. She starts saving up money, wants to open up a restaurant. She gets the money to open up a restaurant. Someone else offers more money. She's no longer getting the restaurant. Prince comes into the picture, solves the problem, the end. That's kind of the plot line of the story. Although the Disney version of it, this is actually such a common motif. This Princess and the Frog, or the original story was the Frog Prince, or actually was the Frog King, or it was called Iron Henry, but Iron Henry didn't have the same ring to it as the Frog King.
I definitely never heard that one.
Well, so this particular story plot is so incredibly used in all these different cultures across the world and history. I'm surprised this hasn't come up before, but there's an actual classification of all different folktale and sort of like these urban myths called the Arne Thompson types. I think that's what it's called. The Arne Thompson Uther Index. So the Arne Thompson Uther Index is a complete catalog of every single folk story that's kind of been known, that's gotten popular. And this particular type of folktale is the ATU 440. It's crazy how specific this is. And the ATU 440 has a few different boxes that this movie checks, so it gets put into this category. Animal bridegroom, broken promises, which is if you kiss me, I'll turn into a prince, and then that doesn't happen. A magical transformation, which is part of that broken promise, and then testing virtue, which in this case kind of failed because she was supposed to not kiss the frog. Anyways, this AT 440. I could spend the next 20 minutes just reading the titles of all of these different stories from across the world. But just to give you an example, the Enchanted Canary, the Enchanted Maiden, the Enchanted Pig, the Enchanted Snake, the enchanted wreath, the eagle of the queen of serpents, the dragon child and sun child, the dragon prince and the stepmother, the donkey's head, the doll in the grass, the daughter of the skies. These are just the D's and the E's. There are so many stories that follow this exact motif of animal bridegroom, broken promise, magical transformation, testing virtue. So it's wild that this particular scale hasn't come up before, because it does apply to a lot of these, but this Frog Prince tale, for some reason, is one of the most universal. The thing is that it's not always a frog, obviously, the maiden, the pig, the snake, they eat the canary, but this idea of a human being transformed into an animal and now needs to do something in order to transform back, you can tell it's kind of like a generic theory, but this is the first time that I think we see it in this particular way. I think we saw it in Emperor's New Groove, was kind of the same premise, where you get trapped in this different body and you have to like fight your way back out of it. But in this case, it's based on a more specific version of this ATU 440.
I was also just thinking, because you're saying the Frog Prince. So I was kind of looking up a little bit, and here, Tiana's on 50% of the merchandise. I guess she ended up being a B-list princess. I don't know. But I was thinking, after this movie, everyone does think of the story as The Princess and the Frog. And previous to this movie, it was The Frog Prince. Previous productions was a 1984, there's a Frog Prince romantic comedy, TV version, a really disturbing looking version, 1986. A play, Tales from Muppetland, The Frog Prince, a 1971 television special featuring the Muppets. Okay, that's an interesting time for it. But yeah, it's always The Frog Prince until this movie. But I mean, when you think of the story, what title are you thinking?
Well, now I'm going to think Frog Prince just out of spite.
I mean, before yesterday.
Yeah, the Princess and the Frog, of course, because that's what Disney does, is they own real estate in your brain, the same way McDonald's owns real estate in the world.
But that seems to be the most lasting piece of cultural effect from this movie. Well, until the past year or two, where we get the ride, right? Have you been?
It's coming. I have not been to the park in the better half of a decade, maybe even a full decade. But I will be going next month, I believe, at least a day or two. I don't know if we're going to be able to hit the ride. I want to, but man, it's hard doing all the things you want to do in one day in Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, and if you haven't been there in a while, you don't necessarily prioritize the new one. So, yeah,
if it was Splash Mountain, I would be first in line as soon as the gates opened. But I don't know
for which one.
If it were for proper Splash Mountain, although I do understand that Rock and Roller Coaster is going to get revamped, so I really want to hit that one before they take it down if they haven't already.
Yeah, I think they're sending the Muppets over there, since the Muppets are getting evicted from their theater. Just like in Muppet movies. Okay, the worst is happening. I'm curious if you didn't want to spoil yourself, that's cool, but did you watch like a ride through or anything of that?
No, I'm keeping it brand new, so I won't know what to expect.
Okay. Can I talk? I'll talk about in vague terms, I guess.
Sure. Do what you got to do.
Okay. I think there's a bit where you're supposed to be a frog and Tiana is looking at you or something. But like I said, it takes place after the movie. My main point is they're calling it Tiana's Bayou Adventure, right? They're very clear, like maybe let's put her name on the ride. Maybe that'll make it pop a little more.
Oh, do they have beignets nearby? They have to, right?
Have what?
Beignets.
Oh, I'm sure they got a restaurant or a cafe attached or something. So maybe, but the ride is food based. Tiana is, well, let's look at specifically what the plot is. Cause you watch a ride and they say this is a plot, but you don't necessarily, work it out. But yeah. I don't think Tiana transforms in the ride. She's just Tiana the whole time. Mama Odie's in the ride. Louis the alligator's in the ride. I guess Ray's not in it because he's dead and this is after the movie. I guess they have fireflies or whatever, that sort of thing. Video games, others. I guess it's others. Anyway, they're preparing a big party or whatever, right? So the last scene in Splash Mountain is now your big party. So
it's interesting too that her profession is a pastry chef, but that has almost no presence in the movie whatsoever. Even when she's daydreaming about th- reaching her full potential, she's not cooking, she's not serving people food, she's just dancing and wearing gold.
So yeah, the ride, I guess, does have a little bit more food, so it's got that going for it. Let's see, do rides have plots, development, attraction, ride experience? I will say, since you're riding the Florida one, the one there is a little longer, but it has the same amount of theming. So I've heard people complain in Florida, like some of the stretches seem a little sparsely themed, because in Disneyland it's all next to each other, but in Florida it's a little spread out. Once you're inside, that I don't think that matters, but in some of the outside parts, I guess it seems that way. I still
I'm
get
not going to
splashed.
complain about being in the nice inside air conditioned ride.
Oh yeah. See,
so.
last time I was in Tokyo Disney, I skipped Splash Mountain because it was February 3rd and the line was pretty long. So all those things kind of come by, and I had ridden it like last September, so I'm like, I can probably skip this today and not get wet and stuff. I had a winter coat. I guess I could have managed it. And last time I was on Splash Mountain, I was in the front log, and I got like a full blast in the face, which is, it's fun in September, but not fun in February. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, think about how Brer Rabbit would have felt.
Yeah. You really do feel like Brer Rabbit when you do it, except he got like thorns in his face as opposed to water. So really, that's the flaw in the story. He didn't jump into the water. He jumped into a briar patch, right?
Right. And that's the thing that people get decapitated on.
Yes. Now, again, your theory is he dies, which I do like that, but I believe the story is he's born and bred in the briar patch so he can escape. But yeah, I do like the last scene of Splash Mountain. Is
because he has to be Jesus of that movie. He's Jesus in Song in the South, so he dies and is resurrected.
Here's an interesting thing. We have to talk about this because it's interesting. The climax of Splash Mountain was meant to be terrifying. Brer Rabbit's about to be like cooked or whatever. There's ominous sounds and dark lighting. It's now made to be a celebratory drop.
Okay. I don't.
Now it's like, you're going to the party. We're taking the fast way to the party. It's not made to seem scary anymore.
I'll experience it before I have a thought. But here's another interesting way that the ride ties into this movie, because Splash Mountain represented Song of the South, right? And Song of the South was incredibly controversial. They get rid of Uncle Remus and all but like his silhouette and I think a song at the very end. I'm correct on this, right? Zippity doo dah, like isn't?
Yeah. That's still there.
So they're basically getting rid of Uncle Remus and replacing it with the only other like black milestone movie in the entire Disney catalog. So they're getting rid of the problematic black person and bringing in a new one to kind of cover their tracks a little bit, right?
Kind of. I mean, it is weird they did that in 1989. It seems like a little too late. Like if it was like Splash Mountain was from 1972, you'd be like, I get that, you know. 89's already kind of late and weird. Because I remember
Uncle Remus had nothing to do with Splash Mountain, right? Unless they slowly phase them out over time. It was just the fact that it was from Song of the South.
Also, again, I'm from Atlanta, where that is part of Atlanta history. So, I mean, it still has that taint to it. But at the same time, I think people in Atlanta are a little bit cooler with Joe Chandler Harris than the rest of the world. Like he's a home. I don't get. Yeah. I think replacing the ride was fine. The new ride's cool. The worst thing I'd say is Splash Mountain had a much better story. Whereas Tiana, it has a story, but you can't really follow it easily.
Oh, I get it. It's old, and it's not like they're bringing back Song of the South or Brer Rabbit or anything. I'm just saying, statistically, if you were to just do the math, what are the chances that the only other ride that featured like a black main character in the entire Disney universe gets replaced by the only other Disney movie with the main black character? Just it feels like the numbers behind this make it statistically improbable and therefore calculated.
Yeah, it's like I guess those are the only two animated movies that work. I mean, there's the recent live action ones, but that I don't think you could do that. That doesn't make sense.
Like they didn't replace. They could have easily replaced Aerosmith with Princess Tiana, and that would have made just as much sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm fishing a little bit here. But.
No, you replace Aerosmith with Prince. Oh my God! But shouldn't you could do Prince songs with the Muppets? I guess.
And the ride would be a couch. You're on a couch the
You're
entire
on a
time.
couch, and it's all Paisley Park stuff that you're flying through inside. Oh my God! They're making a mistake. They need to Prince theme the ride.
Gold, Jerry. All we got is gold tonight.
So here is what purports to be the ride, the story. I don't think that's really a spoiler. To help her community, Tiana has created an employee-owned food cooperative called Tiana's Foods, built on a salt dome.
I hate this so much already.
Built on a salt dome that she has purchased. On the day that guests visit, it is Carnival season, and Tiana is hosting a celebration for the people of New Orleans. She realizes that due to a mix-up, her celebration is missing a band and needs the guests' help to find one as they join her and Louis on a trip to the bayou to search for critter musicians. So that doesn't make sense, and if you're writing it and you didn't read the wiki, you don't follow that story at all. You're just like, why am I looking at like a plot of tomatoes, you know?
God, yeah, there's no part of that made me feel good.
Yeah, so they overcooked the story a little bit, I suppose. But a salt dome. So yeah, you're in a salt dome now. It's since Louisiana doesn't have mountains. So you're underground? How does that work? You're falling underground? And they did cheap out. Here's one thing that if they had done this, I think no one would be as annoyed, or fewer people would be as annoyed. They were going to put Mama Odie's boat on the top of the mountain, and I guess ran out of money or something. So,
man, it would be a lost opportunity, and because of that, I'm sure they already did it. They didn't include this, but having you go to the other side, there's got to be, right? There's got to be some blacklight voodoo stuff as part of this ride.
I think the weirdest part is when you are shrunk down, but that would be voodoo. They don't. Let's see who is in the ride, because obviously Ray's not in it. Ray's dead. Uses Mama Odie. Okay, here we go. Well, Mama Odie's doing it, so it seems like it's nice magic. Nothing bad's happening on this ride. Mama Odie uses her magic to shrink the riders down to a tiny size, and there's like a beam of weird colors and stuff to symbolize your transformation. If that's what you're looking for.
It's not. I was looking for a voodoo ride.
I think Haunted Mansion's still more of a voodoo ride.
Well, one of the lines in the song as the movie is actually beginning, it's something about we got magic, good and bad. We make you happy, make you sad, get everything you want, lose what you had. This is New Orleans. This is basically what they're saying over and over again. So it feels like the ride should also reflect a little bit of that.
That sounds like something Nick Cage would have been screaming at an old woman in Port au Call, New Orleans. Make you mad, make you sad. Yeah, I don't know. I can't do a good Nick Cage impression, unfortunately. I guess the other thing is they opened the Florida one first, which is in Critter Country, which sure, it makes sense. It has critters, but the Disneyland one seems to work better because it's in New Orleans Square, which obviously makes a ton of sense. That actually makes more sense than Splash Mountain. So next to the Haunted Mansion, it's in New Orleans Square. That makes sense.
Again, man, they only put it there to get rid of Remus. That's the only thing that makes sense.
Well, I still ride Remus around here, so Harold Ramis.
There was another. I kind of was hinting at this before, that her problems are ultimately solved by her friend, even though they're pretending as though they're making their own way. But why wouldn't Tiana ask her friend Charlotte, like, "Hey, Charlotte, I've been saving up since we were little kids. Here's this thing I really want. You're the one that just gave me enough money as a cash injection to start my own business, but the mill I was going to buy just got a higher bid on it. Could we send your dad to go and negotiate with these bankers and get me a better deal?" That's all she would have had to ask, and I'm sure that it would have happened. I will add a little caveat in here that maybe in a skeptical side plot, the dad goes to negotiate a deal and he gets such a great deal that he ends up owning the mill, and he just hires Tiana to kind of like work for him as an employee, as opposed to her becoming, like a business owner. Although I'm just reading far into that, but there's a weird question. Like, why doesn't she just straight out ask for what she wants from these people that are clearly have been helping her entire life, even though they're kind of presented as flippantly just spending all their money and having no real sense of value in the world? But that's the perfect person to ask for some help.
Do you think that's why it makes it clear on the ride that Tiana has created an employee-owned food cooperative called Tiana's
I do.
Foods?
I think that they're leaning into, like rejecting, I guess, help by the higher class. But if anything, this movie is in a very passive aggressive way, kind of emboldening this divide between classes. I guess like they're embracing a class divide and saying that we should isolate ourselves from each other and not sort of intermingle.
Although the employee-owned food cooperative could still be controlled by the mob. So your earlier suggestion to hold
right.
water.
Well, she can't get away from. I'm sorry. If you live in New Orleans and you're trying to run a business, your money's going to the mob. Even a seamstress, absolutely.
Oh, and I said they got Teamsters.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought you meant her mom. Like, even her mom probably had some sort of mob protection, even if it was through Big Daddy. Why do they call him Big Daddy, right? You only get a name like that if you've killed a few people.
Yeah. A couple of weird, I'm getting near the end of my notes, but a couple of weird frog things. I felt weird when they were tied together with their own tongues. That felt like kind of like, a video in one of the weirder corners of the internet or something. Tied up by your own tongues, bound together by your tongues. Like, that's weird. Just throwing that out there. And they do mushrooms?
Do they? Did I miss them eating mushrooms?
He minces mushrooms. I guess we don't actually see them eat it, but I was just like, oh, maybe they'll eat the mushrooms, and then I could say the climax of the movie is due to that, which I guess that doesn't work. I was just like noting that they specifically when he's like, I can't do anything, she's like, I'll show you how to mince mushrooms, right?
I mean, I think that would also make a good addition to the ride if they give you a little bit of mushrooms before you get on.
And then they meet Mama Odie, actually. So I guess I could try and draw that line if I wanted to. They eat mushrooms and meet the Voodoo Queen.
I've been looking into fan theories on some of these just to see if there's anything that we miss out on. There were 3 that stood out. I'm not going to go into any of them in too much depth because they kind of fall apart once you start picking all of the things apart. But one of them is that Tiana is trapped in a Groundhog Day style time loop, and that all these different decisions and all these things that she's making, she's doing this on like a day-to-day basis. So she does get caught by the rednecks and gets eaten. She did, like, all of the bad things do happen to her, but over time she slowly pieces together the perfect sequence of events to get what she wants at the end. That was one of the interesting ones. Another one is that the shadow, God, what's his name? Dr. Pimp Master.
Yes, that's his name.
Master, yeah. The Voodoo Pimp Master is her dad. That her dad goes off to quote unquote war, but he actually dies making a contract to make sure that the rest of his family survives some larger tragedy at play. And this is his way in trying of like guiding her. And because ultimately this whole voodoo spell does benefit her in the end, the fact that it happened at all.
Yeah, if you had both characters voiced by the same person, I think that would hold some water. The idea is good. I mean, it's definitely one of those sound theories that makes things better. I mean, I'm thinking most movies, action movies or whatever, especially, you'd be like, they're Groundhog Daying it, or Edge of Tomorrow it, or my disc does say all you need is
one
kill,
of my favorite versions of that. I like that theme so much. I even like bad movies that use that theme, like Happy Death Day. I loved it. I like so many of them.
No, I have the Japanese Blu-ray, so the movie is called All You Need Is Kill on my Blu-ray, which is great. Which is why would you change that name? That movie's so weird because it was All You Need Is Kill. Then was what? Live, Die, Repeat, and then I think Edge of Tomorrow is the one that's basically stuck as like that is the movie's title, but it's like no, that's the wrong title. You chose poorly.
The other fan theory that I came across was that Prince Naveen, the frog, was never actually cursed, and he was lying the entire time. And this is his Little Mermaid moment. This is him saying like, if I want to turn into a human, if I want to get a human soul and escape this weird system of like just being ground back into mud and reborn again, then I have to get a human female to love. I mean, if you were to invert the Little Mermaid, right? This is basically the story, but it's the frog that wants to become a human, and he gets his way.
Yeah, I mean, the Bayou Romance song is "Kiss the Girl" with him in the Ariel role, isn't it?
Exactly, it's exactly it, man. This movie is kind of a blend between Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid, and then Killing Uncle Remus. Those three things mixed together.
So I guess that's just where I was like, oh, it's a greatest hits, you know, because it is interesting that there's just enough critters in here to replace the Remus critters, you know, and yeah. And Louis the Alligator in the new ride. I haven't done the actual one, but he looks cool. So, you know, you have the things in this movie. I do wonder if it was already in their mind at this point, which probably was. I imagine it was.
This movie too, I think it's one of the very first Disney movies that puts forth a very magical idea of sacrifice. That you can only get the things you want if you also sacrifice part of yourself in order to get those. In Tiana's, it's a little subtle, but she makes this claim with her mom, and her mom's like, "Oh, you got to take time to dance." She's like, "No, now's not the time for dancing. That'll come later. Now I have to kind of put my head down and just work in order to not lose everything that Dad's been working towards." Like she's trying to build this big legacy. But the whole premise, even in the voodoo ritual, when Prince Nadim gets, you know, his blood drawn and he gets transformed into this frog, all of this is representations of willful sacrifice in order to get something else at that cost. And usually this is way more subtle. Usually this is kind of like the subtext of some of the magical spells that the Disney characters find themselves under. But in this particular case, they're introducing a new generation of kids to the newer version of magic. This is very Crowleyan magic, where you can't get anything unless you sacrifice something of equal value. And they premise this in that you're no longer wishing upon a star. And her dad says that that's only half of it. Half of it is the magic you get from the star, but the other half is the magic that you have to give up in your own self-sacrifice.
And Ray continues to stare at the star, and then he dies. I was like, there's a supernova out there. I mean, there's no connection, you know. I didn't buy into that magic. I was like, oh, they killed Ray. Ray's dead. I mean, he is dead. If you go into the sky as a star, that means you're dead now, right?
Yeah, well, or you've transcended, right? Dead to us, but not dead to you.
Perhaps. Okay, so there's that. It felt weird. And then
like
earlier,
if you become an ascended master, did you die?
And then earlier in the movie, she smashes Frog Naveen with a book, and he doesn't die. So, I mean, that would have done some major damage if that was a big book of the Frog Prince.
Yeah, I think that it's almost the same Roger Rabbit physics that you can only die in a Disney movie if it makes you sad or something. I don't know exactly how the rule. I know the Roger Rabbit one is that he can only get out of the handcuffs when it's funny, but there's probably another version of that about dying in a Disney movie, that you can only die under certain circumstances that don't follow the same rules and physics that we do in our waking lives.
Right. I guess the last thing I just want to bring up a bit is the weirdness of the voodoo transformation and the drop of blood. It doesn't work very well, as parts of him keep turning into basically Mr. Shmee again.
Oh man, I'm gonna absolutely butcher this, but the little charm that he ends up wearing around his neck that gets charged with this red energy, which kind of is a representation of the magic that came from his blood. But I want to say this is called a putwa. I'm already someone out there is like, oh my god, it's the worst pronunciation I've ever heard. But it's a putwa, which is a little charm that gets created by one of these voodoo mercenaries, and once they put one of these together, it is supposed to have some kind of a magical charm to it. And they kind of describe in this movie that it loses its magic because the prince turned into frog gets away, and that he's kind of working against it somehow. I don't think any of that adds up. Even in voodoo physics, I don't think any of that actually holds up. The magic would still be there until the curse is broken. The curse couldn't be broken unless the token itself somehow gets destroyed. So it kind of fell apart, or maybe I just don't understand voodoo magic enough.
Maybe maybe it's not binary, you know, it's not like it is or it isn't. There's a gradient or something.
Sure, or it's just a plot device. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's pretty funny. So sure, plot device that, you know, it's amusing enough. That said, I'm looking. I did not write any zingers about that, so I guess it didn't stick much. But I did want to bring it up just a touch. Oh, I was just I have a note. Does voodoo do this kind of transformations? I guess you're answering my question there.
There you go. See, all things come back to it.
Right. Any other threads you want to pull on today on this one?
I think the biggest takeaway for me was just discovering that ATU system, that Arn Thompson Uther Index. Maybe I'll bring it up a little bit more often because it seems fascinating. It's sort of this Rosetta Stone of folk tales, and you can feel like, oh, if I like that story, it's an easy way to find 100 other stories that are kind of based on it, and not just a direct chronological lineage. It's not like all of these stories grew off of or were influenced by each other. It just happens to be this really interesting repeating archetype that keeps spreading itself around. There's another website called TV Tropes, which is kind of a similar one. You've probably come across this before, but this is a much more like an older version of TV Tropes about indexing all these different folktales.
And yeah, in the 2010s movies, we're going to be hitting a whole lot of folktale fairy tales. They sort of, I feel like the 2000s, they're like, let's try something different, and it mostly didn't work. So they
They were like, let's just redo all the movies we've ever done.
Yeah. So, you know, Enchanted does well. This does pretty well. It wasn't like I think it came under expectations, but like nobody lost money on it. That sort of thing, you know. Unfortunately, I guess it wasn't enough to keep the hand-drawn animation rolling, which is a reason that it would have been kind of nice if this was a out of the hat blockbuster. Then we probably would have gotten a few more. But you don't. I think
it's at this point, it was a lot of people would have been taking a risk on Disney, but also this one came out pretty. This was in a transition time when movies didn't come out, and then like you'd have to wait a year or two to get it on video afterwards. This one was pretty immediate, and this was maybe one of the very first hand animated Disney movies that followed that kind of a release schedule compared to the earlier Renaissance, right? That was in that sort of window when you could keep a movie in the theater for damn near a year and then wait another year in order to release it from the vault.
I wonder if some of the earlier, like the again, like Home and the Ranger, Emperor's New Groove, I'm curious how long those took. It feels like, you know, since they weren't like massive blockbusters, it wouldn't have taken as long. But and by this point, you know, the idea that Disney's just being like, we don't do home media is, you know, like our classics can only be on home media for like 2 weeks at a time or whatever. That just doesn't work by the late 2000s, you know. There is a canceled television series. Oh, recent. The canceled television series is only from 2020. Okay, that's interesting. But it is, as of March 2025, it is dead on arrival, it seems. So no.
Oh, yeah. Well, it turns out the kids don't care about people working in soup kitchens and co-ops. It doesn't have the same pizzazz as actually being a princess in like a faraway land.
Potential live action adaptation. No, thank you. Tiana made a guest appearance.
Isn't that weird? She's the only Disney princess that wants to go from Cinderella into just being, you know. Well, I guess Cinderella was the poor version, but
she wants to be Remy the Rat.
Right? Yeah, she wants to go from princess to pauper.
Yeah. So I mean that's well, you know, that's her goal. Good for her, I guess. I guess we'll start winding it down for today. I think I've said everything I needed to say, at least.
Yeah, I mean, how much more can we really say without stretching it?
Right, stretching it like frog legs, frog tongues, all that sort of stuff. Okay, it's April now. What's up in your bag?
The Illuminati comic is in my hands. All of the issues, I've been sending them out nonstop. It's probably going to take me another month to get the other like 600 or 700 orders packed up and everything, because I've been hand signing a lot of them. But go to paranoidamerican.com, and any day now you'll be able to go to that front page and you'll be able to get your own copy of the Illuminati comic, the best, the most anticipated. And now I believe that I can make a factual statement. This is the most successful comic book about the Illuminati ever produced. So if you want to get it on this, there's only going to be a few more issues left after we ship them all out. So go and get your copy. paranoidamerican.com.
Okay. As for me, I do a lot of podcasting. You can find that podcastius.org. Films and Filth talks about really bad or really good movies according to IMDb. I'm saying it all wrong. You know what I mean? Reviews. Time Enough Podcast does The Twilight Zone, and Podcast 1999 is currently doing the TV Planet of the Apes. Of course, it's not great, but it's a lot better than we expected. So that's nice. We thought we might have.
Was there an animated Planet of the Apes?
Live action and animated. We are covering both. We are getting near the end of the live action, and then we will do the animated one. I mean, it's very 70s TV, but you know, it's got a little bit of ambition. It's got some good acting. I'll give a big shout out. I mean, Roddy McDowall is in the show, so there you go.
The animation has good acting.
But no, I'm talking about the live action. I haven't seen the animated one yet. We haven't got. We're going to start that in the summer, I think. But Roddy McDowall returns as a different chimpanzee, but he's in the show. And then Mark Lenard, who is Sarek on Star Trek.
Hold on. They're not chimpanzees. They're apes, right? They're great apes.
Roddy McDowall is a chimpanzee. We have gorillas and we have orangutans. Those are our three Planet of the Apes species. So he is a chimpanzee, yes. But Mark Lenard was Sarek on Star Trek, Spock's dad, right? Usually very restrained. He's a Vulcan. On the Planet of the Apes show, he is a gorilla named General Urko, who spends most of his time screaming at people and throwing them across rooms, and it's amazing. So if you want to see a man in a gorilla suit scream at people and then throw them, I do recommend the Planet of the Apes series. So yeah,
guys, have you seen Chimp Crazy?
What is?
It was a limited. It was like a Cinemax or an HBO series about people that own chimps. It's kind of the chimpanzee version of Tiger King.
Oh no!
You're missing out on maybe some good little one-liners and quips about people being absolutely mutilated by chimps as you talk about Planet of the Apes.
No, I think I was thinking of Lancelot Link Secret Chimp, which used to show on MTV in the late 80s and in the 90s, and it was fun at the time. And now it came out that they were like shocking the apes to make them do stuff.
In Chimp Crazy, they actually have is it Alan Cummings talking about Duncan and this one really famous orangutan, and even one of the famous Reese's, which I think was an Ace Ventura, and about how rough some of their lives were. It was maybe rougher than being a Disney kid as being a Disney chimp.
Oh yeah, maybe I don't want to watch that then, because then I'll also have to strike Ace Ventura off of things I can watch comfortably. Okay. Anyway, it's time for dinner. What are we eating again?
Frog's legs, right?
Oh, I thought it was gonna be the pastry, but I guess it's frog's legs.
All American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all the land and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
Explore the unique with Paranoid American sticker sheets. Unearth tales of cryptids, cults, and mysteries through each sticker. These won't last long. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
All American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
What the heck are you waiting for? Discover the extraordinary with Paranoid American sticker sheets. From cryptids in the night to cults out of sight, each sticker is a unique find. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper, the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe a language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when the beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.